If you're a Sydney buyer seriously looking at the Illawarra, whether that's Wollongong, the northern Illawarra, or further south towards Kiama and Gerringong, this is the video I want you to watch. Before you do anything else, not because the Illawarra is obviously amazing and obviously not the obvious choice for everyone, but because Sydney buyers arrive with assumptions shaped by the Sydney market. And a few of those assumptions are incorrect. Ways that will cost you time, cost you money, and cost you undue stress. So, this video is about making sure you do not make those mistakes that I see regularly. Let's start with the question every Sydney buyer asks first: the commute. The train from Thirroul to Sydney Central is around 80 minutes. Wollongong to Central is about 90 minutes. Helensburgh, which is technically the first suburb of the Illawarra, is closer to 55 to 60 minutes. So what most people forget to factor in, the train runs express. You almost always get a seat, and part of the journey is along the coast or through the national park. Half of it you're looking at the ocean. And the best thing I love about it is when you're coming home from the city is you go through a tunnel, and at the end of the tunnel is the first view of Scarborough Beach or Wombara Beach. It is amazing. So you can look at those different factors. So comparing that to 45 minutes on the T1 from Parramatta, standing packed in, no scenery. The one I'm going to choose, I think you know. The more useful question than how long is the commute is how often do I actually need to do it? Most buyers I work with who are relocating to the Illawarra are going in 2 to 3 days a week. Some are fully remote, and the commute arithmetic changes completely once you're doing it 10 days a month rather than 20. So, running the numbers and what you actually get. This is the section I want you to pay attention to because the numbers are the reason most Sydney buyers end up here. Surrey Hills median house around $2.1 million, Fairy Meadow around 1 million to 1.05 million, same state, 1 hour and 20 minutes apart. Lifestyle overlap is significant. Both have that cafe culture, walkable main streets, and community feel. That $1 million gap represents a much larger block, potentially an extra bedroom or a work from home setup, a lower LVR, potentially no LMI, and a meaningfully small mortgage. That's not a minor difference, but for some buyers, it's the difference between buying now and buying in 4 years. So I run this comparison for clients regularly. The mass isn't always as dramatic as Surrey Hills versus Fairy Meadow. Sometimes it's Coogee versus Thirroul, or Paddington versus Gerringong. But in most coastal to coastal comparisons, the gap is generally between 700,000 and $1.2 million. How to choose the right suburb, a simple framework. The Illawarra is not a homogeneous market. It runs from Helensburgh in the north, which still feels like Sydney's orbit being so close to Sutherland, all the way down to Gerringong and Kiama in the south, which feel genuinely regional. The prices the buyer profiles, the commute times, and the lifestyle feel are all very different. So the question I ask every buyer I work with is name the life first, the postcode follows. What does your daily life actually look like? Where do the kids go to school? How often are you in Sydney? Do you want to walk to coffee? Do you need a beach within 10 minutes? Do you need to be on a train line? These questions, I like to go very granular to get a better idea and find that perfect home. So once you have the honest answers and we've gone down that path, the suburb shortlist usually narrows very quickly. The buyers who struggle are the ones who try to find a suburb and then work out their life fits. That's backwards. Start with the life that you want. Broadly, northern Illawarra, so you've got your Helensburgh to Bullo. That is the tightest supply. If you look on the map, it sort of narrows between the escarpment and the ocean. There's a tighter supply. Most Sydney commuter traffic, highest prices relative to the region. Mid Illawarra, so you're talking about Thirroul to Wollongong, the strongest lifestyle to price ratio. So good train access, established communities, and then you're looking at Southern Illawarra and Kiama. So you got huge blocks, more space, village feel, slightly longer commute, but that won't matter if you're not really working in the city and you want to have a fully remote lifestyle and a purely different buyer profile. How the market in Illawarra actually works. Portals, so realestate.com, domain.com versus off market negotiation timing. So, this segment is about how to actually operate in the Illawarra once you've decided to buy here, once you're committed. So, a few things Sydney buyers get wrong. First, the market moves differently. In inner Sydney, you've often at an auction in a room with 10 other buyers. In parts of the Illawarra, you have more time, but more time doesn't necessarily mean unlimited time. The best properties in tightly held suburbs still move fast, especially in the first inspection window. Second, off market is a real factor here. As I mentioned in other videos, 35 to 40% of properties in this market transact before reaching a portal. If you're using Domain, you're competing for a subset of available stock. Working with a buyer's agent who has relationships with selling agents in the area changes what you get access to. Third, the negotiation dynamic. Selling agents in the Illawarra operate in a relatively tight geographic community. They have long term vendor relationships. They value buyers who are prepared, make decisions quickly, and don't play games. So, if you're coming down with a, ooh, I don't know what I'm doing attitude, they're going to realize this quite quickly and find out that you're not a serious buyer. So, and having a pre approved buyer who moves decisively will get more respect from that selling agent than a cagey buyer with uncertain finance. And that affects what they'll tell you about vendor flexibility. There's some of the frameworks that I use, but that's just a snippet. So if you're a Sydney buyer seriously considering the Illawarra, the three things I'd tell you before anything else: get your finance genuinely sorted, not a 10-minute online approval, a credit assessed pre-approval. Write out what your daily life actually looks like in a suburb, not just what you want a suburb to look like, and talk to someone who operates in this market full time, because the ground level picture is always different from what the portals show you. I have a calculator. It gives you a brief synopsis of exactly what you want to do. So it'll give you timings on how long the commute will be. It'll give you how much time you're spending compared to how much you're earning. Feel free to have a look. Drop in a message if you want that link. And if it's a conversation you want to have, reach out directly. I'm based in the Illawarra. I buy here every week, and I'm happy to give you a straight read on whether it makes sense for your situation. Like if you give a like if you enjoyed this video. All the best. Speak to you soon.